I want to start by just saying I agreed with your point about, we were hearing from nuclear experts on nuclear. We need to hear from renewable experts, storage experts around pathways to decarbonization, those pathways that are available to us. I heard a question earlier about consultation and relationship with NB Power. I wanted to ask about your nation's relationships with ARC and Moltex. And I know, Chief Akaji, you said consultation. I guess feel free to elaborate on what you think that is or what you think that should be, but I'm wondering what has happened so far. So I'd ask whoever has an answer to that to please answer.
I have to apologize. I didn't quite hear all the question, but I'll do the best I can. Consultation is a very tricky issue because it's consultation is not new, by the way. Everybody thinks, oh wow, this is something new. No, consultation and reconciliation, these are not new. They're just the flavor of the day. So consultation brought to us as a tool, a way to talk and get together. It's because of the courts. Oh boy. Mm-hmm. No, I'm not a lawyer, and I apologize for even going there. But if you want to have some fun, are there any lawyers in the room before I get into real trouble? Okay, you should look at the Black's Legal Dictionary because they have changed the meaning of words. And if you want to have some fun, have a look at their new meanings. Consultation and words like transparency and these are words that are brought to light due to Supreme Court decisions and also the Declaration on the Right to Indigenous Peoples. So when they start to use the language, a good part of it is to put it out there. Unfortunately, they're not ready to define it. And as a result, there's a lot of confusion as to what is consultation, what is dialogue, what is discussion. So this actually slows down the conversation. I tried to get beyond that and say, please come talk to me. You know where my home is. There's a key under the porch. You can just come and have that conversation with me. There's nothing to be afraid of here. So let's do it, and we can do it right. But when they start to put words on it, and then that brings in the lawyers, and once you bring the lawyers in, then they have to bring in their lawyers. Once you've done that, the conversation starts to move basically sideways, and it makes it very difficult to have a very direct conversation on real issues, the things that we want addressed, because in a court of law, that's not our world. That's your world. And that's a dimension that has been brought to us. And yet, there it is. We are under conservation. We have to consult. We have to use consultation. We have to. So all of these rules and regulations that come to us through your courts, we find that they actually delay, impede, and sometimes interfere with conversations. I don't know if I answered your question, but what I'm trying to say is, let's get beyond that. Mm-hmm. Kathy Baucus knows where I live. Kathy Baucus can come to my house anytime. There's no reason why people can't come and say, if you want the answer that I've got, come. And I will explain to you, because I live where my people have lived for 14,000 years. I am the end product. My DNA is the end product of 14,000 years. When I talk to you, you may see a 77-year-old hard drive, but the truth is, I'm the end product of 14,000 years. I can point to the waters that were rich. I can point to where we survived. You want to talk about sustainable? You want to talk about 14,000 years. That's sustainable. So when we do the dialogue, don't be surprised if some of what I promote seems foreign to you, but it's no less foreign than some of your language and your words and your courts. Mm-hmm. I hope that, again, is the only answer I have.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And I guess I'm wondering, and I appreciate you adding that context, That was part of my question, and then the other part is, I'm wondering, has dialogue happened between your nation or your nation with ARC or Moltex or NB Power on this specific file of small modular nuclear reactors?
So I will mention that absolutely, we've had, I can count on less than one hand how many conversations we've had with ARC and Moltex, but I think right now we have had conversations, and I think at least in one case we're waiting to have some questions that we asked answered. I think that was maybe last fall or something. So conversations directly on SMRs with NB Power have been quite numerous, yes. And we're just ramping up to have further discussions with the CNSC on their regulatory process, because of course they've never licensed these things before. So we're, curious about how they'll be making rules for the licensing and how they'll be divining a process, because it's something that hasn't been done before here for our rulemaking. And I will say, it seems like you still have some time left to answer questions, and we welcome that. I see we've also lost a number of members of the committee here today, so maybe we need to cut it short.
If I could just addendum that. Sure. We've had quite a bit of conversation, actually, but I find there's a big difference between speaking to a salesman, a technician, an expert, and it's quite often we get the salesman. That's a job. I'm not going to criticize anyone for what they do, but please don't come to me as an expert and give me expertise when I read a document, I look at it, and my background is, I'm a mongrel in many ways. My education, my major's in math and physics out of Dalhousie University, so I understand a lot of the technology. And I looked at this equation. I said, the equation is flawed. Well, no, sir, you don't understand it. Well, that's great. The salesman is telling me I don't understand it. I can accept that, by the way. But I wouldn't mind having a copy of that equation so I could take it to some mathematicians I know and say, I think that there's a flaw in this equation. Well, I'll make sure you get a copy of it, sir, but I'm pretty sure it's too complicated for you to understand. Well, thank you again. But that dialogue is not productive. Mm-hmm. Send me the people that have answers. Send me the people that are respectful enough to say, gladly, and if there's nothing wrong with it, give it to me. Mm-hmm. I'll give it back. But that's not what's happening. It's an interesting world when somebody's promoting something, and I'm very familiar with circular referencing. Do not give me someone that creates a sales document and then turns around and references and tells me that's a scientific reference. Mm-hmm. That's a killer. No, I'm sorry.
I hear you.
Yeah, that's a killer. But when you do that in front of somebody and then you tell them it's too complicated and I don't understand it, okay, I'm mm-hmm. simple. Thank you.
Thank you for adding that. I hear you. I do have another question, but I also want to make space if Grand Chief Ron Tremblay, if you wanted to respond, and if not, I'll move on to the next question. It's up to you. Go ahead. Yeah.
I believe those two proponents are actually guided and told just to speak with band elected chiefs, not to the traditional the way of how we govern. So no, they have not approached us.
Okay, thank you for that. With the time we have left, I wanted to ask for your thoughts around what you would like to see in your nations, in your communities, in terms of a path forward. And I mentioned this yesterday. I think of Amlamguk. So I live in Mi'kmaq territory, and Amlamguk is Fort Folly First Nation, and they've been installing solar panels, for example. And I wanted to ask for some of the things that you either are working on and have in your communities and your nations, or that you would like to see. You know, it would be, I think it would be great if we were really investing in energy efficiency, for example, and in more renewable energies, but I wanted to hear what your visions are for paths forward.
My situation is quite different from others. When you don't exist, and it's that was pretty fancy footwork. We don't exist because the fellow in Fredericton who was taking the census for Indigenous peoples in 1951 didn't make the trip to St. Andrews, where my mother and my family and all the Peskotomuhkati were living, because the weather was too cold. We are a product of climate change. So here we go. The others, the other chiefs have capacity, they have manpower, they have budgets. But we are negotiating with Canada. My budget is negotiation, and they watch me like a hawk because I want them to. I need to be accountable for every cent. But when I step outside and have dialogue, it's difficult because there is no funding. Yes, I can apply for funding. We applied for funding to come here, and let's thank MB Power for the opportunity and that affords us. But there's a lot of work that goes into a small amount of money, and that makes it difficult to have those other dialogues because I don't have an expanded network within my community. Mm-hmm. So what you're looking at is Plan Z. I've inherited the file because, well, I have a background, but also because I don't have the dedication that people dedicate to the file. Mm-hmm. So to be honest, I'm a problem, and I've slowed down a lot of the conversation, especially when it gets to how others are offered. I've been offered similar contracts. I've been offered windmills. I've been offered solar panels. I've been offered. But if I accept that money, there's another obligation. And if I take that and go there, I'm totally distracted from what I need to do. The recognition of my people, the return to Canada, mm-hmm. the equality of nations, it's all got to be my primary concern. Mm-hmm. So, yes, I'm a problem. I can't, this is a poor excuse, but it's my own excuse. And that's one of the reasons it's difficult for me to say, yes, they've consulted with us, but quite often they'll come to our territory, and if you want the honest answer, if I won't give them the answer they want, they will go to another community and get it. Mm-hmm. And all that is it's an exchange of money, and I won't do that. I would not let them put money on the table and say, go ahead, build it. I can't do that. So I've slowed down the conversation. I've said no, not until I've had the opportunity to really look at things properly. And as a result, they go out, they find other funders. There's all kinds of things going on in my territory. Do I know about it? Yes. Have I been consulted? I guess they've told me about it. But am I going to stop it? Not really. This is your world. I'm not here to stop this process or to interfere with what you are doing. This is your world. So, no, that's why there's a breakdown in that relationship. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm never sure if I answered your question.
No, thank you.
And thank you for your questions, Ms. Mitton.
I think Grand Chief Tremblay was going to answer, if you would permit that, please.
Just to conclude this, we've gone to the United Nations during the springtime under the Indigenous Permanent Forum for 5 years pre-COVID, and we met a guy, Art Manuel from British Columbia, and he wrote a book called Unsettled Canada. And one of his quotes always has been tattooed to my brain is that he said, it's always been about the land. Always been about the land. And here we are in eastern part of this country you call Canada, and we have peace and friendship treaties that our traditional governments signed with the Crown. And as you know, and we've stated plenty of times that we've never surrendered any lands nor resources. And what I like to foresee is receiving our crown land back and give us the opportunity that we can rebuild our nation again. Because of putting our people on these postage stamps called reservations, they're not First Nations, they're reservations. There are just that, and one of the elders who had passed away, previous Grand Chief, called them federal institutions, our reservations. So let's talk about land back.